right. So contingency planning. Here we are going to talk about what to do if you become ill or have an injury or something that causes you to need to be away from your house for any amount of time. Or if you are somebody who lives with somebody, what to do if they become ill or need to be away from the house for any amount of time. So here we go. Technical difficulties here. It's not letting me switch slides. Okay. We're going to go ahead. I'm just going to do it a little bit different here. We'll just share it from this. Maybe. Zoom is not being my friend today. When I try and share, it's just not loading on my computer. So.
Did you attempt that? Oh.
No, I didn't. Sorry, everybody. Do I take off this?
Yeah. It doesn't seem like that's all. I've heard of shit, like do the layer. No. I don't know.
Sorry, everybody. And this is like,
That's
yeah. Sorry, bear with me.
I'll sit by the food.
My mouse is not here. There we go.
Is there anybody
Okay.
who does not want their picture? So I know if I take video that you'd rather not have that in that. You're just kind of.
Thank you for using subtitles.
Okay.
Do not want that. Okay, I think now we might have it fixed. I think the subtitles were messing us up here. We're gonna try this one more time and see. All right, we're just gonna have it look like this because I think that will be easier. So sorry about that, technical difficulties, but today we're gonna talk a little bit about contingency planning. So why this matters, I just wanted, I think Sarisa was going to talk a little bit about this, if she's in here, but she's not. So this matters because it's good to have a plan in place for what you're going to do if you need it, even though you might not think that you need it now. It's good to kind of be prepared, and so then when the time comes, we are ready for it. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about the Aware and Care Kit, which we talked about a little bit before. If you've been to any of my previous workshops, Teresa has talked a lot about the Aware and Care Kit. We've had Brad kind of share his story and another member share his story about why the Aware and Care Kit is so important to make sure that your medical providers know what is going on with your care, why medication timing is important, and all of that. And we actually have some Aware and Care Kits here today. For those of you who didn't get your kit last time, you can stop by and grab one. And then, Sarisa, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to say about the Aware and Care Kit.
Yeah, so if you were not here last time, or if you've never heard of the Aware and Care Kit, please raise your hand. Okay. Okay, all right, that's a lot. That's more than I expected. So the Aware and Care Kit, we have 7 available. So I did order a full case the last time because there were several people that didn't get one the last time we did the presentation. So we have 7 kits available. You do not need to hear the presentation to start putting the Aware and Care Kit together. In that kit, there's something called the Hospital Action Plan. And essentially the Aware and Care Kit is an advocacy tool that you use for yourself. So when you're having a planned or an unplanned hospital adventure, you want to make sure that you have your kit with you. That kit lets everybody know who's in contact with you that your medication schedule needs to be followed to the T, to the minute, within a 15-minute time frame instead of an hour before or an hour after, which is standard procedure in a hospital setting. And it just makes sure, front row, that's what you get. Front and center. So really that's it in a nutshell. If you want a deeper dive into the Aware and Care Kit, we don't have time for that today. Pick up your kit. Let's go through it together. I don't mind doing that with you privately at a different time. But it is very, very important that you have that set up for yourself or your loved one, and that you understand the importance of your medication timing when you're going for a procedure. Okay. That's it.
Yes.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Last time we did get those pamphlets or those kits, it was missing the pamphlet.
Yeah, and they did. Unfortunately, I asked for a stack of the hospital action plan or action kits as well. However, I did hear that you can print it off online as well. So you can print one for yourself. My intention was to print those. I need to do that. UPS store.
You've got
I will
time.
do that right now. Make it up.
Okay. So, just in general, I wanted to talk about the importance of having some things prepared. So your Aware and Care Kit is one of those. But another part of this is your medication list and spare medications. If you have any extras, keeping a set ready if you need to grab and go. Having a medical alert bracelet. I was hoping that Dan McDonald was going to be here so he could share his experience with his medical alert bracelet. Oh, Ron's got one. Perfect. These are really great. You can get them online for like, if you remember how much you paid for it, was about,
I think it was about 20 and 30.
about $20 to $30. They're really great. Some of them have like a QR code, a paramedic would just have to scan. But then that's what the EMTs would always look for if there was some sort of emergency, anything like that. Also things like an end of life directive, which includes if you have a power of attorney, excuse me.
We do have the power over attorney.
For your healthcare decisions, having an advanced directive in place, thinking about how you feel about CPR. These are all things that we don't really want to think of, but if we think of it before we have to, it's really nice to have these things in place. Make sure that your family knows what your wishes are and you've got that written down, and make sure that your care team knows it exists as well. And then another thing to consider is creating a phone tree. So how people who need to know that something has happened to you or a loved one will be updated with that if that's necessary. For hospitalization specifically, thinking about things like creating a go bag. So this would include your Aware and Care Kit, a list of contacts, so your partner or your children, your primary care provider's name and phone number, your neurologist's name and phone number, and your insurance card. And then on top of that, just anything that you might need when you're in the hospital. So a change of clothes, toiletries, maybe something to do if you're an avid reader, or like puzzles, anything like that, so that you're not bored if you are hospitalized suddenly. And then overall, just having in mind what hospital you would prefer if you are going to a hospital can be nice to have prepared. I talked about creating a phone tree before, but you can also do that by an email list or a group text. Anything that can help let people know what's going on with you. So that can be important. Also, if you are hospitalized, knowing who has access to your home. If you have pets or plants that you care a lot about that you want to make sure get taken care of, who do you have ready that's going to be able to do that even on short notice? Who's going to just go over and check on the house, make sure the house is okay, things like that. And then also think about a discharge plan. So as you're leaving the hospital, if you are going back to your home, is there anybody who's around who's going to be able to help you get back to your home and get settled in once you're there? If you need any help daily while you're there, if anybody is going to be able to do that for you, or if it's a situation where you are going to be going to a rehab facility for a few weeks, which one would you prefer? Which one takes your insurance? Things like that. If you have that ready, it takes a lot of stress off of you and your family when you are in the hospital trying to make these plans. Then briefly, I just wanted to talk a little bit about aging in place. This is really important for people with Parkinson's and other people. Exploring your options about home setup and safety, which we're going to talk about next. So I'm not going to go super in depth with that. And also looking at potential resources for in-home caregivers. I know we've had several members lately who have been kind of scrambling to find in-home caregivers because it's something that they've discovered that they needed. And I've been working with some social workers at KU Med trying to kind of compile a list of caregivers that you guys are going to have access to soon if you need it, because it can just be so stressful to try and find help when you don't know where to look for it. And it can be very expensive to find a private caregiver as well. Overall, talk with your family members about your plan for aging in place. This kind of goes with the same thing where what facilities you might like to move into for senior living, things like that. Again, I know it's not something that we want to think of, but if we think of it before we have to, even if we don't need it, at least you have the plan in place.
And it can happen even without senior living. I mean, there's a lot of people, you know, for some reason you have to go to something for help.
Yep. And then I just briefly wanted to touch on having an advance directive, because an advance directive is one of the main ways to give you control over your own decisions about what's happening with your healthcare, what's happening with your end of life plan. This isn't limited to including information about your power of attorney, not eternity, for healthcare decisions, your feelings regarding CPR and things like that. And like I said, make sure that you talk about this stuff with your family. I know it's awkward to talk about, nobody wants to talk about it, but it's really important to communicate your wishes with your family, and it causes less stress on them in the long run too. And then this was a member, I was talking with a member about this, and he said, well, I just have a binder that has all of this stuff in it. And so he sent me a picture of what the tabs looked like. So I thought it was a pretty cool thing, and I just decided to share it with you guys. Of course, not everything that's on this has to be in your binder if you choose to make one, and it could also include a lot of other things. But thinking about things like your financial power of attorney. I'm not sure why that's so difficult for me, but your healthcare directives, accounts, bank account information, house insurance, life insurance, how you're going to split up your belongings, and then also including there any funeral plans or other wishes that you might have towards the end of life. I know, just a personal story for me, when my grandma died, she died very suddenly, and she had everything laid out for us down to what song she wanted played at her funeral. And I was about 20 when she died, but I remember my mom just being like, I'm so glad that mom did this for us. And she was just felt a lot of relief because she didn't have to think about a lot of those things. And so I just think it was important to share with you guys that, again, we don't like to think about it, but it can be really helpful to think about it before we need to. So
I'm going to share real quick. My brother passed in December, and he's a CPA and thought he had everything together, and he did. But he got a new computer, and he put his son, my nephew, as power of attorney, and he didn't have any of the passwords. He said it was a nightmare. And so he was from Florida coming to Ohio. It was a nightmare. It was supposedly there, but he couldn't get access to it. It was like, what? So,
yeah.
You don't think about that.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of horror stories
Yeah, he was just
surrounding
like, I
similar situations. Yeah. And then here I have just some additional resources that I found that either classmates shared with me or I found myself that were really good. We're gonna post this when we post the video recording of this. I'll post all of these links in either the comments or with the description. It'll be somewhere there. But if you have any questions about any of it, you can go ahead and contact me and I'll be able to answer your questions. One thing I did want to highlight is this podcast episode. The Parkinson's Foundation has a lot of amazing podcasts. If that's a way that you learn well, is through hearing things rather than reading them and trying to decipher through information that way. They have this specific episode I listened to when I was creating this presentation. It's about advocating for safe hospitalization and talking a little bit more about the Aware and Care kits specifically if you're interested in that. But they have a ton of other episodes. So if you just go on Parkinson's Foundation and you search healthy eating podcast or hospitalization podcast or any topic that you want, I would be willing to bet that they have a podcast on it because they have a really broad spectrum of podcasts. So I just wanted to make that be known for anybody. And if anybody's having a hard time finding it, let me know because it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Music, or it's just on the website. But I can help anybody, direct anybody to that if they are having any questions about it. And do we have any questions about all of that? I know I kind of flew through it. I gave you guys that little handout sheet to try and give you guys a little starting list for what you can work on for contingency planning.
How many of you guys are freaking out right now because you don't have any of that in order? How many of you are like, we're good, we've got that covered? Okay, good.
Good. Did you have a question?
Well, I don't, but I said, I work for the church
Mm-hmm.
and I help elders plan funerals and whatnot. And just so you guys know, funeral homes take advantage of your loved ones. Not selling high-end things. And so families, it's really hard, like even having the songs and everything planned out. Because when I buried our dad, we didn't know what songs or readings he would prefer. And guessing that is so hard.
Yeah.
So if you have everything laid out to detail, you just take the burden away from your kids.
Yeah. So just for those of you online, I'm going to repeat because I am guessing that you could not hear that. She was just saying she helps plan funerals and things like that at the church. And she was saying that it's really nice to have scripture readings, songs, things like that planned out. And if you have everything planned out, you're not being taken advantage of either from a funeral home because funerals can be very, very expensive. But if you look into that, you can make the most financially responsible decision before you're at that point as well. So, does anybody online, let me bring you guys up here. I'm going to stop my share. Did anybody online have anything any questions or comments? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, just like that, we're going to go ahead and head into our next portion, which this is going to be a little bit longer. Let me share my screen for those of us online. Okay. And it's going to look like this again because I don't want to have the same technical difficulties we were having at the start of this presentation. So here we're going to talk about home setup, how to safely navigate your home, how to set up your home so that it's most effective for you. All of these are just things to think of. Remember that in your home, you might have been doing something the same way for 20 years, and I'm not going to tell you that you can't continue to do it that way. These are just some basic overall things that you might think of if you're doing any redesign of your home or if you've been having more falls in your home. like I said, just some things that we can think of and kind of keep in mind as we go through things. So overall home safety, it's been proven that creation of a safer home environment is important to decrease the risk of both accidents and falls in our home, which is pretty self-explanatory. But how do we create a safer home? That's kind of what we're going to talk about. When we're making changes, I also want to remind everyone to make small changes to your home and routine. Don't try and go through and overhaul everything at once, because that's not going to probably be super productive either. We're creatures of habit, so don't want any of that. Just wanted to hit on smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. It's not something that we always think of to keep batteries in those and keep those checked, but just wanted to give everybody a little reminder. If you haven't checked your smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors, make sure you're doing that every 6 months. And then overall, good lighting is really important to increase home safety. So including contrast, having bright colors, putting light things against dark things or dark things against light things to help mark stairs or mark doorways. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. And then just exploring different lighting options to make sure that you're able to see as much as you can, especially our vision changes with Parkinson. Some of you experience that more than others. And then overall clutter, it's good to just keep a clear space, keep things in the same place that you usually have them for energy conservation and things like that. Okay, so now we're going to kind of just go through some more specific things that, as an occupational therapist, if I am completing a home assessment, these are some things that I typically would look at. And so I just wanted to share these things with you, so it's something that you can think of as you go forward. So some common obstacles that we see are throw rugs. This can be combated in several different ways. You can just get the rug out of there if it's something that you find yourself tripping on, or if you use an assistive device to walk, just find yourself catching on it, things like that. So we can get rid of the throw rugs. We can invest in a throw rug that is not as thick or plushy or have tassels on the ends, things like that. Or if it's like, oh, that's my great grandma's rug and I can't get rid of it, we can, there's a lot of different options that you can have as far as non-slip mats that you can place under the rugs. Now they make this really great tape that you can put under the rugs, especially on the corners where they tend to come up, making sure that those stay down and it's not becoming a tripping hazard for you. It's really important. Another thing to think about is extension cords or lamp cords, computer cords, things like that. You just want to keep those out of the way. And then close furniture. Stephanie's having her bag of chips here. Close furniture. Sometimes if there's a way we can rearrange our home so that we're not passing through very, very narrow ways or letting anything stick out into our walkways, things like that. And then I just wanted to say, as far as stairs go, making sure that we have handrails installed next to stairs. Both sides is best, but if you can only get it on one side, that's great too. And there's always the option, if you're having a hard time with stairs, adding a high contrast band on them that can add a little bit of grit to your step and just mark where the end of the stair is. Again, with vision changes. In the bathroom, using non-slip tape rather than bath mats, both inside and outside of the bathroom. If you do like a bath mat, picking it up and like placing it over the edge of your tub when it's not in use. The addition of elevated toilet seats. They make a lot of different great commode options where you can just set handrails over your toilet, adding a raised seat. There's a lot of different options. Adding handrails in the bathtub as well as in front of the toilet can be a really good option for people who are having a harder time getting around. And then I'm not gonna go into shower chair versus tub bench because Sam just kind of talked about that last week. If it's something that you have more questions on, contact one of us and we can hook you up. Grabbing a handheld shower, shower head, using a shower caddy, and then the addition of a nightlight in our bathroom can be really good. If you're not somebody who likes to flip on the lights at night. I know I'm not, I can't, because then I can't go back to sleep. So in our bedroom, making sure that we're having very clear pathways, organizing our drawers and our closet so that everything is easy for us to reach, things like that. Using automatic lights or sound lights. So they make the really fancy lights where your Alexa or your Google Home, if you have that, can control them. They also have, you know, like clap lights. I know when I was younger, that was a huge thing. There was always infomercials, but they still exist. And then there's lights that you can touch, a lot of different options for lighting, or just keeping a flashlight by your bed so that at night, if you need it, you can have that. And then they make a ton of different kinds of handrails that you can use for bed mobility. We talked about some of them during my sleep presentation. Make some that screw into the wall in the ground, some that you can just slide right in under your mattress. Talk to me or Sam if you have any more questions about that too. And then lastly, in the kitchen, storing commonly used items and foods at a place that it's easy to reach. So if you're using your crock pot or something really heavy super often, don't put that up high or really low. Just try and minimize some of that danger that can be there. And then using things that are high contrast. So if you're pouring hot coffee every morning, try using a white cup instead of a black cup so that you can see how full it's going to be. If you're drinking milk a lot, try using a dark cup instead of a white cup because it can help you see to avoid spills. And then there's tons and tons of adaptive utensils and tools that you can use for eating and cooking. And I'm going to take this time to plug Sam's presentation next Wednesday at 2:30. We're going to be over there. That one's not on Zoom. Sorry, everybody. But she's going to talk a little bit more about that. And then, as always, if you guys do have questions, feel free to ask them now or contact me afterwards. There's a million resources. I could do a whole 45 minutes just on this, but I didn't want to bore you guys too much. Overall, just some other considerations as mobility changes. For seating, we want to try and make sure that we're picking chairs or couches that have a firm seat, a straight back, and armrest. Those are kind of the main things that we look for, which is maybe not the most comfy chair that we've always sat in, but if we're having troubles over and over getting out of that chair, it's time to kind of make some adjustments by, you know, maybe changing the seat, adding in some armrests, things like that. And then always, if you're having a hard time getting out of your seat, try and scoot yourself as far as you can to the edge. That'll help you get up. Yep.
There is a lazy boy chair.
Mhm.
It helps you get up.
Yeah.
Is that good or bad?
Yeah, so just for everybody online, she said there's a lazy boy chair that helps you get up. Is that good or bad? It's good and bad. I would say it's more good than bad. It's something that I would encourage you not to always use that. If you don't need it, try by yourself to get up yourself. And if it's just a day where you're more tired or you just can't do it, then absolutely use the tools that you have. But I would encourage you to do as much as you can for yourself for as long as you can, just to kind of keep that strength. I was just telling somebody the other day that as we go about our life and do our daily occupations, that is enough exercise for some people. And so that's a way we strengthen our bodies as we're completing our daily. I might sit down and stand up 20 times in the day. I'm using all my muscles every time I do that. So
I would say don't allow it to become a place to sleep, because sometimes I think people end up using it for everything. I've seen.
yeah,
people-
I think for
that
some people
happens.
that's their most comfortable place to sleep. So it just kind of depends on what works for them. But make sure that if it is something that you're spending a lot of time in a chair like that, or any one specific seat, make sure that you're relieving pressure, not just staying in the exact same way all the time, because we can end up with pressure sores and ulcers, and that's, again, a whole nother can of worms that I could talk for quite a while on. As far as threshold changes that we've got within our house, like thresholds between hardwood flooring and tile, or hardwood floor and carpet, you can always consider taping that down if it's becoming an issue, or just marking it with a high contrast tape to make sure that you see it and it's something you're aware of. I understand that not everybody can just renovate their house because they're having issues with this specific spot, but those are some things that we can do to kind of bring more awareness to it and make sure that you're being extra careful when you're getting over that threshold. As far as the width of doorways, that's something that you can always invest in a contractor, kind of make wider doorways. That's something that's pretty common and usually is not too costly to do if you're using a walker or a wheelchair for mobility, and that's something that has been an issue. And then if freezing of gate is something that is a huge issue for you, I have seen just from my research, reading online, some people found that placing markers, just tape markers around their house to help with their steps to avoid freezing, was kind of something that they have found worked for them. And if you want more information on that, you can talk to me after. And then I don't know how many people here have pets. I wasn't sure. Okay, we've got a good amount of people who have pets, so I'll talk about this. Something that we can consider is just to make a schedule or checklist for tasks, especially like I have a roommate, so my roommate and I always do a specific thing. Once we've fed the dogs in the morning, the scoop goes one place, in the evening the scoop goes a different place, to kind of communicate with your household members about who has done what. Using long-lasting entertainment for them, so you can freeze yogurt or peanut butter in a Pong toy or an ice cube tray, or just like a Tupperware. Using puzzle toys or bones can be really helpful. And then for cats, things like laser pointers, automatic toys, catnip, that can keep them entertained for a long time. There are delivery services like Amazon or Chewy to get your really heavy food bags or products like that you're needing more often, as well as different leash types. So I would always encourage everyone to use a leash with a comfortable handle, or they make waist strap leashes, which I have recently started using, and I actually really like it. And just a word to the wise, we typically advise that people avoid retractable leashes because as they're going out, they can burn your hand. There can be a lot of issues with a retractable leash if you're having your dog 25 feet away from you out in public. And then this is also just something I wanted to share for any dog owners. I use a gentle leader with my dog. It goes right around her nose and then around her neck, and it gives you control of their head. It's not a muzzle, some people think it is. But if you have issues with your dog pulling and it ever causes you issues with your back or arm, something that you might want to look into. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so moving a little bit more into body mechanics here, we're going to talk a little bit about posture and why it's important. So overall, having good upright posture takes less energy, especially when we're walking. It's less energy consuming to have that upright position, and it helps increase your step length. I'm gonna kind of move this back a little bit so that everybody online can see me. When we're in a stooped posture, it's a lot harder to get that leg out in front of you versus if you're upright, you can have full range of motion with your legs. And so that's part of why good posture is important. And then for outside of mobility, good posture can help aid in your digestion and breathing and everything that kind of happens in this mid-range. I noticed everybody kind of sat up when I said posture. That allows us to fill our lungs fully all the way, allows our tummy room to move, our intestines room for peristalsis to happen, things like that. And because we are having better breathing, it increases oxygen flow to our whole body, which helps combat fatigue, which we talked about in my last presentation. And that upright posture also decreases pressure to our entire spine. I know my generation, we have a thing called tech neck, which all generations can kind of have, but I saw a graphic and I wish I would have wrote down the numbers on it, but as you put your head forward, it increases the weight of your head, basically. Have you ever seen that? And you know, keeping that head up, this is the natural position of our spine where we can best support our head and neck. And then it also has been scientifically proven that proper posture increases confidence and boosts mood, which I thought that was pretty interesting. Kind of like a look good, feel good kind of thing. So I thought that was a little bit interesting. I also just briefly wanted to talk about footwear and how proper footwear can affect us as we're getting around our home and in the community. I'm sure most of you guys know wearing proper footwear can reduce pain and increase our independence. If we're not comfortable in our shoes, it can be a huge pain in the middle of our day. We get somatosensory feedback to our foot and ankle. As we're standing, you can feel the ground below you. You might not always think about it, but that's what we call it in OT world, is somatosensory feedback. But this is really important for balance and preventing slips and trips. And one thing I found really interesting when I was doing this research was they have done a lot of studies with different kinds of footwear and seeing what people were falling most in when they were wearing. And socks and slippers have been shown to increase falls. I guess I always thought, well, you can feel the ground the best when you're in your socks because there's no shoes under them. But this is actually not true. Barefoot or wearing socks is not necessarily better, even when you're inside the home. Because most of us have been wearing shoes since childhood. So there's the few people out there who that might not ring true for, but for the large majority of the population, it's better to have a second pair of inside shoes or just wear your outside shoes inside to prevent falls. And then I just wanted to let you guys know that you can always go and have your shoes fit by a specialist. There's different places like the running company that you can go and somebody will watch you walk and kind of recommend what shoe they feel would be best for you. And I would encourage you to utilize those services, excuse me. And then just in general, as far as footwear goes, for heel height, 2.7 centimeters or less is what is recommended. Basically, the higher the heel, the greater your risk of falling, which makes total sense. And then also for the hardness of sole, a thin, hard sole is what is considered best to provide us the most amount of sensory feedback. I always thought a comfy shoe was best, but sometimes a little bit harder is actually better. Having more tread can help prevent slipping and tripping on different surfaces, but especially if you're someone who struggles with freezing of gait, you don't want too much friction. So that's something that needs to be taken into account when you're looking for shoes. And then the insole, there are certain products that can provide some additional proprioceptive feedback and get you where you need to be. And somebody who is more well-rehearsed in footwear would be able to tell you what that would be. I I also just wanted to talk about Kizik shoes. OJ, our member who uses those, is not here, but he's very proud of them. They're pretty cool. It's a shoe where you can just slip your heel in. You don't have to tie them, but they look like a normal tennis shoe. There's a ton of adaptive clothing options out there. If you're interested in any of them, talk to me or Sam. It's kind of with a lot of these things. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about falling, which I'm going to provide some demonstrations for you guys. So it's going to be the best. That's hard. If anybody would like to come and demonstrate, feel free to. I'm just going to get this set up here so that the camera can see me. So there's 3 ways that we can fall. We can fall forward, sideways, or backwards. I had to look really hard to find a good video of how to fall the right way because people don't like to talk about falling, they just like to talk about getting up. But there are things, there are things you can do to practice falling. Sorry, everybody online, can you still hear me when I'm over there? Okay, thank you, Zach. I just wanted to make sure everybody could hear me still. There are things that you can practice. You're going to feel really silly practicing this. I've been doing it for the last couple of weeks, and Sam and Natalie think it's hilarious. It's good stuff, but it is good. This is some things that we're going to be incorporating into some of our rock steady classes. If you came to the 1:30 class last Friday, we practiced getting up a lot. And things that it's really important to practice so that you know how to do it when the time comes. So for a forwards fall, what they suggest is keeping your hands in front of your face with your palms open and making sure that you make contact with flat arms. So we're not reaching straight out and straight down. We're keeping our palms and arms flat in front of us. As you practice this, I don't recommend you just start by falling flat on your face. The videos I watch, the gentleman does, he just like goes straight for it, but I haven't worked up the courage to be able to do that. But I have been practicing some different ways. So one way you can do is just kind of get as low to the ground as you can and work on falling forward, landing with those arms, palms first, followed by the arms, not landing straight like this. That's how you break your wrist. So as you progress, you can kind of get a little bit taller as you do it. I'm flying all over the place. You can move to your knees as you do it, falling straight. You feel really, really silly, but it actually gets easier the more you do it. So practicing that movement so that when the time comes, you know what you're doing. If you're holding something when you're falling, get rid of it. Don't keep it in your arms. I think Ron was just telling me about that. Kind of our instinct to like clutch whatever we have or try and save your drink or whatever. But in the scheme of things, it's better to throw that, get it out of the way, and save yourself. All that other stuff can be replaced. I think that's all I was going to say for this. And then I'm going to talk about the backwards fall next. So there's a few things with this that when we're falling backwards, we want to avoid locking our knees, avoid reaching up, avoid reaching back, and avoid leaning back with your head. So this fall looks a little bit different, and to practice this, you kind of want to work to sit as you fall, put your arms straight out and tuck your chin. So I've also practiced this one quite a bit. It looks pretty funny. But as you're falling, you'll get your hips as low to the ground as you can and fall flat back. My legs just naturally come up. I'm sure that wouldn't have to be part of it, but those arms come flat. So as you practice this, you can start low to the ground, go back, and as you get better at it, you stand up, back up to the ground, and fall back flat. We want to avoid reaching back because that can break our wrists. We don't want to reach out because that can cause us to land kind of funky. This way provides us the most support, protects our head, things like that. Sideways falling, found a statistic that 90% of hip fractures are from falling sideways incorrectly. And I thought that was totally makes sense, but just a really kind of startling number. So to sideways fall, you're going to turn into the fall. So I saw different things from different people. Some people wanted you to turn backwards into your fall. Some people wanted you to turn forward into your fall. So I'm just going to go ahead and talk about both. But if you're falling sideways, you would change it to a forward direction fall. I'm really sliding all over the place with this thing. Or if you're falling sideways, you change it to a backwards fall as you. So again, all really funky things. But I found one gentleman who was super good at it. And I'll include the links to his YouTube video. I know you would normally think, oh, somebody's a great faller. But I am also going to include the link to his videos. If you guys want to watch him more, you can tell me how hard you laughed the first time you see him fall flat on his face. But he never hurts himself in any of his videos. So it's a pretty weird thing to think about, but having some of these things in mind might help you the next time you find yourself in a position where you're falling. And then overall, I just wanted to talk about not rushing to get back up if you do have a fall. Take a second, kind of scan your body, make sure that you're not feeling dizzy, make sure nothing is hurting really bad, because a fall is a really jarring activity for some. Sometimes it's a really easy fall, but sometimes it's a little bit harder. So make sure you are conscious of that, take that second, check your body, and then work on getting back up. So getting back up is what we're going to talk about next. And I was hoping we'd have a little bit more room. If anybody wants to practice this while I'm doing it, that would be great. We're also kind of cramped in here, so if nobody wants to, that's fine. If you're at home, I'd love it if you guys would practice getting up here. But also, if you want practice, you can do it after if anybody's interested. So there's a few different ways we fall. We either fall forwards onto our stomach or on our back. So I'll talk about if you're on your stomach first. And I'm going to put this chair here. So if we fall onto our stomach, the first thing is going to be check our body, make sure that we're feeling okay. So if I just fell, I'm feeling okay. First thing I'm going to do is come into kind of a quadruped stance here. So there's a few different ways you can do this. I'm sorry for everybody in the back. It's probably hard for you to see, but you're going to shift that weight in your hips back to be straight over your feet and kind of in a child's pose position, and then walk those hands in and give yourself a second here to kind of adjust, especially if you just had a hard fall. Make sure that you're thinking about that. And then you will bend your knee and reach up here, kind of sit here for a minute, and then you can push through your knee to come to standing. Your leg, your femur is your longest bone, and your glute is your strongest muscle. So really using those muscles as you stand up to push through there is really important. If you are not somebody who can get up without using a chair, that's totally okay. I want you to use your resources if you have them, if you have a chair close. Once you get here to this quadruped position, you would get closer to the chair, come up here, one foot up, just like the same way that you would if you were using your knee to get up. And then the only difference is you'll push through that chair to come to standing. Another way you can do that if you are using a chair to get up is to push through the chair to kind of sit, get yourself here, and then stand up from there. This is a little bit different because it's kind of a tall chair, but sometimes you gotta work with your resources. Does anybody have any questions about that? About getting up? It's kind of a lot of information at once. Like I said, this is something we're going to be practicing in some of our rock steady classes. If you do power, I know that you practice this all the time. Feels super silly to practice it, but if you practice it before you need it, it comes along a lot easier. Once you do, it becomes a little bit more natural. Yeah, Paul?
You have any,
Yeah, I know.
do you have anything to advice as far as like when you do stand up and you get that dizzy feeling?
Yes. So a question was asked that if you do stand up and get that dizzy feeling, what do? The thing I would recommend is find a chair and sit for a second. If the dizzy feeling is still there, I would have you go back to the ground and get your feet up. So a position like this with your feet on the chair. And then as you feel better, after you've waited a few minutes, kind of repeat the process. So I'll just take this opportunity to show I'm on my back here. So the first thing I need to do is cross over, get to my stomach, do that bend mobility, and then I would push up here. And then if I was feeling dizzy that first time I got up, I'm going to give myself a minute or two in this quadruped position. I might sit here before coming up. Then go ahead and let myself get into this position here. Get my knee up. Again, give myself a few moments. And if you start to feel dizzy, back down again and call for help if you really are super dizzy. And then back up, sit down for a few minutes. Yeah.
You're gonna do the demonstration.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we can do that. Natalie, would you help me with that? Okay, so if Natalie fell, I'll kind of show what I would do. So if you've got somebody here with you, they can help coach you through the process to kind of push yourself up and get your butt over your feet there. And sorry, I'm thinking through what I would actually do. If we'll do this way, and then we'll do another process for if somebody is unable to get themselves up like this. So the next thing I would have her do is kind of come up to you can actually leave this in down first. So I would support them here if they need it, and then have them bring this butt up. I would bring a chair over a lot if there is a chair available. That's what I would recommend so that she can push through that to get up. If she can't, I'm going to come on this opposite side of where she's pushing through. I would put my arm right under here to support her through her armpit. And I'm going to encourage her to push through her leg as she stands up. And I would lift here. Are you feeling dizzy? No. So that's kind of what it would look like if they're on their stomach, if they're able to do a lot of it by themselves, but they just need that little extra bit of help there at the end. The safest way to do is to kind of support right here as close to the body as you can get. And some people here, I've noticed, really like to hold your hand while they're doing that. Just gives them that little bit of extra security, but then still push through their leg as much as they can. Yeah, and then if it's a situation where they're not able to get into that quadruped position by themselves, I don't want you trying to lift them that way. It's just not ergonomic, not good on your back, not good on your arms. So then I would have her roll onto her butt back. And then, and then we would work together to sit up here. Are you feeling okay? And then there's a few different things you can do if you have two people, both supporting under the armpit to pull her up. It just kind of depends on what is the safest. One thing I see a lot that I don't encourage is just pulling like this. That's going to cause me shoulder pain and her shoulder pain. So there's a few different ways to do that. From here, I would have her kind of get into a side position. So, and this is how we're going to get into that quadruped. So, then we're going to here, and then I'll have you just come up to 2, same thing, and that foot up, and then go ahead and push through. So we make that look really easy because we're able-bodied 20-somethings. But that's kind of what I would want it to look like. Don't ever be afraid to call for help if you need it.
Do you want to show the pushback if you can't get it?
Oh, yes.
All right, so some of us, we can get to here, but it's not as easy to come all the way to
Yes.
here. That's a big difference. So Blake's gonna show us how else we could do it.
Well,
Or I'll show you.
yes.
So you can come in here, walk your hands back,
Yeah.
and then if you feel like you can bring your weight into your toes, I would recommend having a chair just so you have something else to grab onto.
Yeah.
But then you can come up to here if
Yeah.
you do have hip or knee problems, because sometimes that's a big swing all the way to that proposal.
Yeah, so that's actually a really great transition into our next slide. So again, take a second to scan through your body. And then Natalie just showed a version of this. If you have a really hard time getting onto your knees or pushing up through your knees, there is the interim style of getting up. It feels kind of funky to do for me because for me it's just natural, but when you're here on your stomach, so if you're on your back, you roll to your stomach, you're gonna kind of have a bit of an inchworm type of thing. So you're gonna climb your feet in, climb your hands in, climb your feet in. Again, if you have a chair or a wall, anything like that, you use that to stand up this way. That way you don't put any pressure on your knees. If you are somebody who has bad knees, practice this before you need to. That was one of the main things that I saw when I was preparing how to do this to show you guys. This was one that they were like, you really, really have to practice it because it feels super funky. And like I said, it feels funky for me too. But if you've had a knee replacement and it hurts you to put that pressure on your knee, that's your best option.
It's also why we practice bear crawls and crawling, so even though you hate them, we do it for a reason.
Yes, it's all functional, it's all functional. Okay, you're having the same questions? Yeah.
I'm saying, I just felt the other day, if we have a cyst that's in the shape of a bow tie, big bow tie.
Oh,
or a
okay.
bicycle.
Mhm.
That way she can get both hands on one side and pull, rather than, like, say,
Yeah.
try to pull one hand, hurt your shoulder.
Yeah.
But by having this differences,
Mhm.
they're available at CVS, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not a good thing. I'm twice had to use it, and he is much heavier than I am, and gosh, I pulled out, and I was afraid, I was also my shoulder was broken. I had to get behind the wall and then kind of get him up. I like this side thing, I want us to practice that.
Yeah, so
That's
just,
an awkward position. It's very unusual.
yeah,
Normally, it was just
a normal
more
space,
different story.
yeah.
Keep that in mind,
Yeah.
you want the person on the floor to be lighter.
Mhm. Yeah. So just so everybody online, just so you can hear that, I just wanted to repeat kind of what was said. They were talking about how there's a sort of like figure 8 looking thing that your care partner or whoever's helping you up can kind of hold one side, you hold the other side, and they pull you up. Sometimes if that's the best you've got, that's the best you've got, but I really don't recommend those because of what she had mentioned. She said, you know, if the person below you is heavier, it's still really hard to pull them. If you can also end up in a situation where if whoever is helping them up is pulling so hard and one of you lets go, you're both gonna kind of fly back down. There's some other little fallacies in there. That is why I don't recommend them, and most OTs would not recommend them. But again, sometimes you're in a pinch and what works, but I just would have you be really careful with that. Make sure that you're really prepared if you're using something like that, etc. Okay, do we have more questions about falling or getting up? Okay, I'm gonna open it up to anybody online. Do you guys have any questions about falling or getting up here. Nope. Okay, well, with that said, that is the end. I actually got through that faster than I thought I would, so I'm pretty proud of myself. Thank you.